Okay, so thank you for joining us at the third annual The Loft's Wordplay Book Festival. Virtual Wordplay is a presentation of St. Catherine University and Star Tribune. We acknowledge that the state of Minnesota is located on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of Indigenous people. The Loft and Open Book are built within the homelands of the Dakota people. The Loft recognizes the original peoples of this place and affirm tribal sovereignty. A few housekeeping items. You can ask the author questions by clicking on the Q&A feature. This event will be recorded and you're welcome to access the event as many times as you'd like until June the 1st. You're welcome to buy Sophia's books using the link below. And while you're there, please consider donating to the Loft. While all Wordplay events are free, we'd love your support in bringing great authors into your life for years to come. And please, please, please take the survey you'll receive at the end of this session. It helps us know how to program the events you want to see. So welcome to this conversation today between Mexican author Sofía Segovia and me, her translator. My name's Simon Bruni and I translate from Spanish. My published translations include novels, short stories, video games, and non-fiction publications. Sofía is from Monterrey in northern Mexico. She's published 3 novels, the second of which, The Murmur of Bees, was an Audie Award winner and named Novel of the Year by iTunes in the original Spanish, and one of Audible's top 10 of 2019 and a Voice Arts Award winner in the audiobook version in its English translation. Tears of Amber, which we're here to talk about today, was originally published as Peregrinos. It's her 3rd novel, the second that we've translated to English, and hopefully not the last. So, hi Sophia, it's nice to see you. We don't get to see each other much. We chat a lot on WhatsApp when we're working on a project, but we don't get to talk much. So it's good to see you.
No, we should talk more and see each other more. This is a great opportunity, Simon, because we've known each other now for 5 years.
Yes,
and really,
yeah.
And we work very closely together, and
we do, yeah.
And I think this is about the 3rd time we've Zoomed or something of the sort. So I'm very happy to see you.
Likewise, very happy to see you.
And especially here.
Yes. Perhaps you could begin, Sophia, by giving us a brief outline of Tears of Amber. And what I'd be really interested to know is what made you want to tell this story?
Yeah, well, I think that is the most difficult question. What's your novel about in 20 words?
Yes.
It took me a long while to write the novel, and now I have to condense it. But it is, I think, it moved me to write it because it is a true story that I was told here in Monterrey. It lives here in Monterrey, so I wanted to tell that because I was surprised about this story that happens during World War II in a very far away land. It doesn't exist anymore even, and that amazed me. It was like writing a fantasy a bit. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I know these people, and they had to leave their land, their Prussia, because they were born in this time when everything was about to happen. They were newborns when Hitler was already chancellor, and well, the cards were set, right? And they just got swept along with their families in this current that they couldn't control, they couldn't get out of. And they had to embark in this real life exodus that happened not too long ago, one of the most terrible exoduses in human history. And so we get to meet Arno and Ilse and their families and during war. But this is not a book about war. It's about what war feels like and how it affects families. And so that's what moved me to write this story. I don't like to go into the details, the historical details about war. I don't like to write about the usual suspects or the usual heroes or whatever. I like to write about the common people. And these are Arno and Ilse, which I got to know here in Monterrey, because that exodus they embarked on ended when they got here to Monterrey and they finally found their roots. And it's very amazing that this land, which no longer exists, still have people living that had to tear their roots, had to break the roots they had in that land, and had to travel so far because of violence and come to Mexico, to Monterrey, and continue their life. So yeah, this is okay. Spoiler alert, Ilse and Arno do survive. But the thing is, this is the journey, right? This is the novel.
Yeah.
What happens to them? How do they survive? What do they lose? Starting with their childhood, right? So this is a look at what it feels like to live through times like that.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things which initially really drew me to your work was how you examine families and the dynamics between members of a family. And I just really love working with the language that you use to create that. Many people watching may have read The Murmur of Bees, and I was just wondering, while Murmur of Bees and Tears of Amber are very different stories with different settings, are there any themes that arise in Murmur of the Bees that you sort of continue to explore in Tears of Amber? Do you think there's a common thread through all your writing until now?
Well, yeah, there are several themes that both novels have in common, but especially this. I don't like pieces of history that gets left out of the puzzle, right? Because they're uncomfortable. In Mexico, in a very well and very much told story about the revolution, nobody ever speaks about what happened in the North. And so that's the official history. The North doesn't exist ever. And women don't exist ever. And they don't matter. And the thing is that I found that this is so everywhere, right? In Mexico, we're champions for that. And I like to break that. I like to break with that. And so the story is told, revolution, the World War II, the story is told in a very, very simple way, just one way, a single story. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie talks about it. And she talks about it better than me. So I refer to her because you should go see her in her TED Talk. But I was doing that when I first listened to her, and I said, yes, that's what I feel too, that the single stories are very dangerous because they do not complete the whole story. And so I am not trying to rewrite history. I'm just trying to find these pieces of the puzzle that are left swept under the rug because they're uncomfortable. And so add the piece to the revolution that is missing, and say, what you've been telling is not the whole story. It's not the only truth. There are several truths that coexist. And what I found in Peregrinos, and I didn't know at first I was going to find that, because I was first moved to tell it because of all the coincidences that happen in the story, that also the coincidences with me, with where I live and what I was writing, with The Murmur of Bees, because this is another big coincidence. It was not planned or contrived. In both novels, we have two boys with hair lip, ¿cómo se dice? Labio leporino. Simon?
Yeah, hair lip, yeah. It is hair lip.
Okay, hair lip. Yeah, and cleft palate. Okay, I remember the words. And I don't know of too many novels that have them. And I was reticent to write another novel with a boy with a hair lip. But I said, if I'm going to tell this story because of the coincidences I found, well, I should not leave this out and see where it takes me. And where it took me was a wonderful place that is called Love. Love sees no defects, right? Even in Nazi Germany. But what happens is that what they most have in common is that both stories have pieces of the puzzle that are uncomfortable. And one of these pieces in World War II history is called Prussia, East Prussia. It's a very uncomfortable story to tell because it tells of a land that disappeared, that got overtaken, and then a people who, after the peace treaty was signed, were still living in this fight for life, right? And because they got abandoned by everybody, but by their government for certain, but also by the Allies. And so they were women and children, and this is a story that is very uncomfortable to say because it would be like facing the truth that after the fact, women and children were made to pay, right? Yeah. And it's very painful. And then also both stories tell about this very, very strong and figure of women in history. And what I've discovered is that history does not take a look at women mostly because up until now it might be a different thing in some countries, but women have not participated actively in war. And so they get left out. And what I've seen is that history doesn't take a look at what women have done throughout human history, that is, pick up the pieces. Yeah. And that happened in El Murmullo de las Abejas, The Murmur of Bees, and in Peregrinos, Tears of Amber. Yeah. And so I believe that no story can be told just from one point of view. That's also what they have in common. I cannot tell the story of Arno and Ilse and not take into account whatever happens around them. And so this is a multiple point of view novel also, in a different sort of way, not as The Murmur of Bees, but that's also something they have in common.
Yeah, one of the real appeals of Tears of Amber for me was, you know, if you read about the military in a war, well, I can't really relate to that. You know, I've never had anything to do, you know. But if you're reading about the families, you know, on the ground who are just caught up in it, then, you know, you can relate to that. They have the same arguments between siblings and they use the same language, but, you know, it's, I think that's what you do so well is just bring families to life in such a realistic way. It just feels so real. And I was just wondering,
and that's just okay. Yeah, no, that's just the thing that I'm not interested in the historical facts. I'm interested in the human condition and the human experience, because I think that's what we can absolutely know that we have in common. I don't care what country we're from or what language we speak or what faith we profess. We're human, and that's the common denominator, and it's a beautiful common denominator.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel I know these characters personally. That's how good you are at, you know, creating these characters and their relationships, you know. And this, you know, this made the job of reimagining them in English just all the more enjoyable. So I was just wondering, could you tell us a bit about how you imagine and give voice to your characters? I'm particularly interested to hear about Janusz, who is one of my favorite characters in Tears of Amber.
I love him too. But the thing is, it was a challenge to write Arno and Ilse, for example, because I knew them. Arno is no longer here with us, but Ilse is. She told me the story, and it was difficult to keep her apart, and it had to be a very purposeful thing to write her as a character and not as a person I knew. because of course she told me the story, but we can never tell the whole thing, right? We cannot go into the feelings, or we cannot go into the dialogue and what the other person responded, especially since she was a little girl when she lived through this period, and she told it to me as an older woman. And also because, and this is a thing in the novel I try to express, is the feeling that what is painful you no longer want to talk about. And so that happened to her in life. I used to ask her, and what did your mother say about this or that? And she said, no, we never talked about it anymore. Why? Because they were just surviving. Survivors, when they're in survival mode, don't have time for anything else but surviving. Yeah. And so that's how the relationship with her mother developed even into adulthood. And so there were many pieces of Ilse's puzzle missing also that I had to fill in. And that's where I like to think that my imagination and my intuition served me well, because she left many things out, but I, as a reader, I think I'm an expert at also trying to feel the stories. And that's something very important to me, to say that first I'm a reader, and first and foremost, I am a reader, and I like to go away. And so I like to take each characters and live their stories. That's also something I also learned to do in El Murmullo de las Abejas, The Murmur of Bees, to no longer be me, because I don't like to write me. I like me, but I want to leave me behind, right? I want to become something else, and that's what the superpower we readers do have, to become somebody else. And as a writer, I couldn't do no less, and even I had to do an even greater effort to leave me behind. And that's why I do believe that when I went into Ilse, I became Ilse or Arno or their mothers or Janus. And Janus was really a delight for me to find, because he started from what Ilse told me, that they had this farm, a very nice farm. Her father was the administrator. And one day the government sent these Polish workers for forced labor, right? And she actually, in Spanish, she called them slaves. That's her translation for Zivilarbeiter of fate. My German is not good at all. But
well, they were, weren't they? They were slaves, really.
Yeah, that, let's call it what it is. And she said it. And what happened was that she told me that she used to escape from her house to go into the barn, because the Polish workers were turning the wheat, because that's something you had to do. That's something I learned here writing this novel. And instead of just turning the wheat, they used to draw in the wheat these beautiful pictures of flowers or different sorts. And that just struck me as so hopeful, that even in your enslavement, you can have that energy, that light in you to do that. That speaks very, very strongly to hope. And so that's an element of Janus. And then another element is that when they had to embark in this exodus with the family in their wagon, a Polish worker, a young man, came with them. And then I asked her, and at the end, what happened to the Polish worker? And she told me, no, one day he wasn't there. I don't know what happened to him. One day he was no longer there. And so from those elements, I found Janus. And what I wanted to see is what needs to happen to a person in order to find themselves a slave and still draw in turning wheat, right? And of course, he not only draws some pictures of flowers, he draws stories. And what I found was that stories, and that's something I do believe, is that stories erases all frontiers, borders, enemistades, I don't know, hatreds or whatever, and can bring people together. And that's what I loved about Janus's stories drawn in the wheat, is that Ilse escapes from her house without her mother knowing. She goes there, and through his stories, they get to build this brotherhood, sisterhood, they get to really feel close together, get to love each other, conquer language barriers, country barriers, hatred or whatever, and really love. And that's the best thing, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, you write in Spanish, which gives you access to many countries, many potential readers. But I was just wondering, could you tell me a bit about what it means to you to be translated into other languages? What's your experience of being translated and published in other languages like? Because we work quite closely together on Tears of Amber, exchanging a lot of thoughts, making certain decisions together. Was there a particular aspect of the project that you found interesting?
Yes. Well, what is it? It's a dream. I can confess that as I was writing The Murmur of Bees and even Huracán, which is the novel that is not yet translated and that I hope one day will be translated by you, Simon. Since I do live really close to my city is not in the border, but we have really a culture here in Monterrey that admits both cultures and both languages, and so I really do, and I even studied at the American school my whole life, so it's very natural to me, more natural to write in English or read in English than to speak it now, because it kind of, if you don't practice it so much, it might get a bit off. But well, the thing is that I did think about the translation from the first word. But I do know that it's very difficult to get translated into English. But I dreamt. And the first time I got to my to Penguin Random House in Mexico, I did ask, when are we getting translated? And they told me, oh, it's nearly impossible. Don't dream about that. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I do dream, because I do believe that my stories can be anywhere. And as much as people, we in Mexico read stories from everywhere in the world translated into Spanish, well, why not? And so, you know what, Simon, the other day I was looking into some archives, old archives, and I found your email that you wrote to me. And I think that along with the day I got accepted into, to be published into Penguin Random House, I think that's also one of the best days of my life, because I knew you. I had read you, and I didn't even know that it was a translation, because it was such a good book, The Light of the Fireflies. I thought, I read it in Kindle, and Kindle takes you to the first page, not to the cover, right? And so I didn't even know that I was reading a translation. And you wrote to me and said, oh, I'm the translator of, what? Is that a translation? And I went to read your name in the front cover of that novel. And so that's how it got started. Yeah. And I'm very glad that it's really a dream come true, because English is the most difficult language to get translated to, actually.
Yeah, it's it's not easy.
No, the numbers are not in our favor, but well, you made it happen for me, because you opened this door and you got the ball rolling, and then Amazon Publishing, well, they liked the novel, and so we're there. And what happens is that translation opened the door for the Murmur of Bees to many other languages, and they're coming out this year. We're going on to 15, and so I'm very happy.
15 languages.
I'm very 15 languages now,
wow.
Simon.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
but let me tell you that I always knew that it would be very difficult to have the novel translated, because, well, I don't know other languages, but I do know English, and it's been a joy, really a joy, to work very close to you, that you've opened your process to me. You've, well, since I actually know that you are you live in England, learned Spanish in Spain, and are translating Spanish from Mexico into English from the United States.
Yeah.
So it's a long and winding road. So it's been really a thrill to watch you translate, and to appreciate the art that you do, because it's not only that you're a translator, you're also a a great writer, actually. Because when I'm writing The Murmur of Bees, and there's some sense of humor or some sense of sarcasm, how do you translate that? Well, you have to go further, and you have to have the feeling and the intuition. And I've been so grateful for your intuition and your feeling, and what you've caught on, that because when I read your work in English, I forget that I'm reading in Spanish or English, because it is that good. And I hope in other languages, well, The Murmur of Bees and then Tears of Amber find as good as translators as you. But for now, the other language that I read, besides French, but they're not still in the bag, is English. And I love reading your work, Simon, every day.
And thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, well, I really enjoyed the process, that we have, that we've sort of, where we're working ongoing, we're working together on the text with comments, and then WhatsApp messages, and, questioning things and discussing things, and that's possible because of who you are, and it's also possible because you can read English, so yeah, it's yeah, absolutely.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. And you know what, the thing is that Spanish, well, it's the same language, of course, and we have the same rules, and we have this Royal Academy of the language or whatever, and it's okay, but still we have our own roads, our own ways to talk about things. And we've had to discuss this about, for example, a word called necio in Mexican Spanish is stupid in Spanish from Spain. And so we've had to say, no, that's not what I would never call the mother stupid, or she's necia, she's stubborn, or a nag, or whatever. So we've had these discussions, and it's been a thrill, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot about Mexican Spanish, I'm not sure I could translate contemporary fiction with, modern Mexican slang. I don't know if I would go there, but with historical fiction, there's not so many differences, is there, between European Spanish and Latin American Spanish?
And you know what, also when I'm writing, I know I'm writing in Mexican Spanish, of course, I will not deny that, but I do try to be welcoming, because that was also a dream, to get to all these Spanish-speaking countries, right? And still be understood. And I do know that Mexican novels are not very much out there. quite the country for the Spanish novels that are here in Mexico, right? And we read them often and whatever. And what I found is that most people understand what I'm talking about in my Mexican Spanish when they read it in their Argentinian or Colombian or Spanish from Spain. And that was also an issue for me. I wanted to be more universal, even if I'm respecting my Mexican Spanish, because as you know, the Murmur of Bees has a lot of slang and a lot of ways to say things, and from different social strata or whatever. And so what found that you did amazingly is translate that and still ring true. It's amazing.
Okay. Last question. What I'd be really curious to know, Sofía, is what led you to become a writer of fiction? Why did you choose this path?
Well, I am from Monterrey, and being from Monterrey is very meaningful because it's a city that was very productive, very modern, very industrial. And in finding its economic equilibrium, it still hadn't found its artistic way of things, right? That you can be productive in art too. So there wasn't very much art when produced or appreciated here in Monterrey when I was born. There were not many libraries or bookstores or not even museums or whatever. And the thing is that that city told me my story. I was a reader, but my books had to be imported. Santa Claus imported books from Spain or wherever, or from Mexico City. And so I am a reader since I was very young. And I remember not knowing how to read or write and wishing I could read and write. And I love that memory. But the thing is that I grew up knowing that I love to read and write, but not knowing that somebody from Monterrey could become a novelist. I wanted to be a writer. And when it was time to choose my career choice, I chose journalism. The thing is that I am not a journalist. I like to we have an expression in Spanish that if you don't like it, put flowers on it. And so I didn't like things, and I wanted to put flowers on whatever I wrote. But nobody told me that's not good for journalism. That's good for fiction, right? Nobody ever in my life. And so I had to wait for the world to end. It was announced that the world would end in the year 2000. I was turning 35. I would be 35 by then. I had my family. I had done a lot of things, some speech writing and different things. But I had left my short stories behind. And when the end was announced, I said, okay, if it's the end. I didn't really believe that, but I stopped and I listened to myself, and I'm very glad for that, because I said, okay, if it's the end, what do you have to show for yourself? Oh, this and that, my family, everything had to do with everybody else. But I realized that I had stopped doing what made me happy, the things that didn't have to do with anybody else. And I said, those were my short stories. Okay, I'm going to write my short stories. Those short stories I wrote through elementary, middle school, high school, college. I just threw at the end of the school year because they were for nothing. Novelists lived everywhere else except in Monterrey, right? And so at that point I said, I'm going to start writing. And then I opened a newspaper, and there was this offering for a workshop. And that's my city even in this evolution, right, towards art. And so I went, and they asked, what's your novel about? And I said, oh, yeah. So next class, I brought my first installment for Huracan. And then I said, yeah, this is the dream. It's just that I didn't even know it. And that's how I started.
Great. I'm so glad you did.
Funny story. Just don't wait. I'm telling this to everybody else. Don't wait for the end of the world to be announced.
Yeah.
Just stop, listen to yourself, and do your thing.
Okay, I think we've got time now for some questions from the audience. So I've got one from audience member Whitney. And Whitney would like to know, what authors' stories have inspired or touched you as a writer or reader?
Well, this is one of the toughest questions, because when I go to sleep at night, the other authors in this pantheon of authors will come and haunt me because I forgot to mention them. But I do, I do like to talk about Charles Dickens, because when I read A Tale of Two Cities, I realized now that I was already reading as a creator, because I was amazed about what he was doing. I love the story, but I love the structure of it. He sent out this narratives, and they're parallel and seem to have nothing to do one with another. And then he starts this beautiful weave, and at the end of the story, he leaves no loose ends. And that's what I aspire to every time I write. Okay, this is I'm going to write. It is a complicated story. Okay, it doesn't matter. At the end, I have to leave no loose ends. I aspire to that. I hope to achieve that. And well, then there's also Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I love his short stories, absolutely. And I realized with Gabriel Garcia Marquez, when I was a young woman, that short stories need not be left behind. Short stories were not for little kids. I discovered that short stories existed for older people, right? And that was my discovery through Gabriel Garcia Marquez. But then Shakespeare. I loved Shakespeare. But I love his political stories even more, because they made me want to change the world. In just a speech, I love Mark Antony's speech, for example, and how he changes everything. And I never achieved that. But I do think that it got me also into theater and this feel for the story, this three-dimensional story. That's what theater did for me. And I love that. So these are one of many, but I cannot leave out Dr. Seuss. He made me a reader too. So what I'm telling you, you cannot talk about everyone.
Where do you end? Yeah. Okay. And Ellen, she would like to know, why is it difficult for the Segovia or other Mexican writers' work to be translated into English?
Okay, it's just a statistic. It's not just Mexico, it's the whole world. You in English, you publish so much that only 3% of what you published is actually translation. Yeah. That's very little. Yes. Because I realize you publish so much, but what happens is that, and this number has risen, it was 2% 10 years ago. And I think Amazon Publishing is actually opening a big door to this world market, because the world has a lot to say. There's beautiful stories everywhere. And what's happening now with Amazon Publishing is that it is a big door to go into when you're an author from the rest of the world. Yeah. From Mexico, I think it starts with belief also. It's not only English, it's the rest of the world, or even going to being exported to other Spanish-speaking countries. It's not common because we have to start with belief. And we also have to start with telling diverse stories. I think sometimes Mexico falls into this idea that it has to tell itself as a stereotype. And so many stories right now from Mexico have to do with trafficking, drug trafficking, traffickers or whatever. And I'm so against that, because we have many stories. We're a very diverse country. We have very good people. And the thing is that we have to dream about and then fight for, open doors, go knock on doors and work for the dream, right? And we can get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if in Europe, if you go in a bookshop in France or Spain or Germany, then you know there's literature there from all over the world, from many different European countries mainly, but also from other parts. And I don't know what the proportion will be, but you know, maybe like 40-60, you know. Whereas, as you say, it's the same in the UK as well. As you say, in the UK and the US, it's 2-3%. Yeah,
and it's important because when you get a sense of the world, you still get to love your country and whatever great happens in your country, but still have a sense of the world. And that's great, because we're all humans. We share the world. It's the only world we have. And so better understand each other. And there's an expression in Spanish that people who speak together understand each other. But I do believe that people who read each other live each other. And so that's the best understanding there is. And that's my invitation to you, is to read in translation, because it's an adventure.
Yeah. Sophia, Chris, he asks, would you be willing to read a short passage from the novel in Spanish so we can hear some of the original?
Oh,
do you have it there?
What do I have here? I have it. I would have to step away a bit, but of course, and wear my glasses. Okay, just the first paragraph, okay?
Okay.
I don't like wearing glasses in public. Okay, here I go. Capítulo 1, Niño azul, niño blanco. En esa madrugada de octubre, el llanto del bebé se mezclaba con el ruido del viento fresco circulando entre los árboles, el canto de los pájaros y la despedida de los insectos de la noche. Salía flotando de la espesura del monte, pero se apagaba a unos cuantos metros de su origen, como impedido por una brujería a salir en busca de cualquier oído humano.
Thank you.
And there he is. That's Simonopio.
Yeah, that was really nice to hear you read.
Thank you.
And question from Caitlin. Are there any elements of your writing practice that have changed during the pandemic that you will take with you into the future? I think you told me at one point some time ago that you were struggling a bit with writing during pandemic.
Yeah, the thing is, I've realized that my writing process is like a pandemic process. You know that we writers get shut in. I don't go out to dinner. I don't go out to places or whatever. And so the pandemic didn't change my personal routine, but what changed is that my family got into my little space, and then the worry. Also, it's been difficult. And then also I decided that since I've already written in the Murmur of Peace about a pandemic, and I knew what was happening, and really it's been like verbatim, step by step, right? And so what I realized that it was people would need some solace, and that reading would become the solace for readers, especially, but many people would find reading for the first time, and I wanted to be available. So I've been available for meetings, Zoom meetings with readers around the world, really. And I've dedicated my time for that. It's just that I thought it would be only 3 months.
Yeah.
So that's calculation failed me.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I have to step away and really get back into my writing. I'm phasing out. Of course, this is now Tears of Amber. There's going to be some events, but I'm phasing out of this week full of Zoom meetings from with readers. And what I found is that I will never write about this pandemic. No, but I do hope that after this pandemic, okay, it's not been very active in, I've not been very active in writing, but sometimes that happens because you need to evolve. And as a person or as a writer, so it's okay. I'm not too worried. I have the story, I'm writing it just very little by little.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I not so much now, but I remember the first few months of the pandemic, I found it hard to read even, you know, I was too distracted by what was going on and, like you say, worried, and yeah, I just didn't have that focus that I had before. It kind of went, and strangely I could still translate because I just find that everything else sort of disappears when I'm doing that. And, you know, but of course, when you're translating, you don't have to think, you don't have to think up what to say, you just have to think how to say it. So yeah.
But at the same time, it's like reading, it's this same exercise. You had your translation, but others had their reading, and you could leave the worries behind. You could leave them. And that's what happens. It becomes like a therapy, a therapeutic, right? And the best medicine and the best face mask, reading. Just stay at home and read, and that was great.
Yeah. Next question is for me, actually. It's from Emily, and it's, Simon, what drew you to work as a translator? Well, it's kind of happened by accident, actually. When I finished university, in London, I went back to Spain where I'd lived before. And I was looking for a job. I wanted to just get a job and just live there with some friends. And I couldn't get a job. And I just couldn't find anything, and I ran out of money, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and get some work translating. So, you know, I started off doing little bits of work for local businesses and the tourist industry and the construction industry and websites. And it just slowly built, and I discovered this activity which I found that I could do and I loved. And it just changed my whole outlook of life almost, because it gave me something I could do autonomously. And once I was sort of established as a kind of jobbing general translator, I kind of slowly became aware that what I really would enjoy doing was literature. And it's not so much because of a love of literature, although I've always read and I love reading. It's more my love of natural language and the language that people use in life. And, you know, literature gives me an opportunity to translate that kind of language. And at the end of it, you produce something really tangible, a book, which is also hugely satisfying. Yeah, so I returned from Spain to the UK and studied literary translation at Exeter University, and just slowly built a portfolio from there. And that's it. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions. I think we're done for today. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you to Loft members who make these events possible, and to our sponsors, St. Catherine University and Star Tribune. And if I could just remind everyone, please, please, please fill out the survey that you'll receive. It will be arriving in your inbox after the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you all.